Hello everyone. So today we are going to discuss motor control plus corticospinal tract. So to understand the motor control, you have to know that not only there is a movement, there is many things that is happening behind the movement. Alright. So the motor control means it is a three-tier system. It is a three-tier system. First there will be a programming. Okay. So there will be planning of movement. You have to plan the movement. Then you have to program the movement. That is forming the blueprint, and then there is a execution of movement. So it is a three-tier thing. The motor control is a three-tier thing which is made possible by the corticospinal tract and other extrapyramidal tract, and plus there we not forget about the role of cerebellum. There is a role of cerebellum and basal ganglia. So all these things, they together make our movement smooth. Okay. So let's try to understand one by one what is a motor control. So okay, so and what else we need? We do this planning, programming, execution. Above all, we need the cerebral cortex. We need the cortex. We need the cerebral cortex, which is the vital part of the brain and which do the motor movement. So you're moving your hand. Every time you're moving your hand, your limbs, your muscles of the face, you're eating, your movement of the jaw, everything needs movement. Even your respiratory movement. So everything is controlled by our cerebral cortex along with accessories thing, along with these things, which makes the movement more smooth. So let's try to understand first what are the things that happen in the cortex. Okay. So now we know that there are three-tier thing. One is planning, second is programming, another is execution. So let's see what is there in the cerebral cortex. Okay. So in the cerebral cortex, okay, there is a gray matter here, all surrounding that. So this gray matter from where is the main, which it controls our whole of the motor movement. So in the cerebral cortex there is three things that we must know. One is called primary motor area, another is called premotor area, and the third one, not so well known, is still on research, is called supplementary motor area. Supplementary motor area. Supplementary motor area, SMA. SMA. Okay, let's try to understand this thing in the brain. So this is the central sulcus. So this is the central sulcus. So this central sulcus is dividing the frontal lobe from the occipital lobe. So this is the central sulcus. So in front of the central sulcus, this is the precentral gyri, and this is postcentral gyri. So towards the frontal lobe, precentral area, postcentral area. So remember one thing, this precentral area is responsible for all the motor functions. So whatever we are discussing it today, these are coming from the precentral area. Okay, and this postcentral area behind the postcentral gyri, central sulcus, this postcentral is responsible for sensory functions. So all the sensory inputs coming from the spinal cord, it get hooked up here in the postcentral gyri. That is there for sensory area, right? So this primary motor area, this is called area number 4. This is the area number 4, and this is the area which is the front of the central sulcus. So this is the primary motor area. Okay, so what it do? It do the basic movements. It do all the fine movements. All the movements. It's responsible for the movement of our limbs, movement of the face, movement of the chest, every movement in our body. Then going to the premotor area. So in the front of primary motor area, at the front of primary motor area, this area is called premotor area. Okay, so let me draw here. So this is the brain. So this is the central sulcus. So at the front of central sulcus, this is the primary motor area. This is the area number 4. Okay, and then here, this part we are talking as, this is the area number 6. Area number 6, premotor area. This is the premotor area. Okay, this is the frontal lobe, occipital lobe. Don't be confused. This is the primary motor area, area number 4, and this is premotor area. Then in towards the midline, that is in the medial side, in this part. It is the supplementary motor area. So supplementary area is also going to the midline. Okay, let me explain it here. So this is the central sulcus. This is the primary motor area. So at the front, this part up to the calcarine sulcus, which is dividing the parietal lobe, frontal lobe and parietal lobe from the temporal lobe. So this part is called premotor area. Then towards the midline, this is the red portion you see. This is the supplementary motor area, which is extending up to the midline. If I separate these two cerebral hemisphere, this is separating, this is extended up to the midline. Okay, so this part is called supplementary motor area. Lateral to that is premotor area. On the back, this is the primary motor area. So what they do, so now we know this primary motor area is responsible for all the voluntary movements. All the voluntary movements is done by the primary motor area. Now this premotor and supplementary motor area, what they are doing here, they are needed for planning and programming. They are needed for planning of movements and programming of movements. So it has been observed that when there is a problem in the premotor area or the supplementary motor area, then it has been observed that the movements are not so well planned and the movements becomes very, very, what is called haphazard, or you can say movements are distorted. So that type of movement which is without planning is called ideomotor apraxia. That is called ideomotor apraxia. Ideomotor apraxia. That's called ideomotor apraxia. So ideomotor apraxia means the movement is without any planning. So for example, say if I ask you to comb your hair, you know how to comb your hair, but you may not use the comb, and instead of comb you may use a spoon or pen or something else to comb your hair. So because your movement is not so well planned. Another thing, if I ask you, if there is ideomotor apraxia kind of thing, if I ask you, okay, fine, just imitate my movements. So whatever I do, you just imitate my movement. Then it will be very difficult to imitate any kind of movement. The best example of premotor and supplementary area, it was seen that when an athlete is about to run and waiting for the gunshot, okay, that is the sound when they start running, then during that waiting period, it has been observed that there is high amount of waves coming from this premotor area and supplementary motor area before the run, because now when athlete is going to run, then they need premotor supplementary motor area and the premotor area to execute the movement. So the movements, the starting, the finishing, so the whole movement should be planned how he is going to run. So it runs in the background, that how the person is going to do the task. So okay, so that is one example for motor control. And so there is any problem in this premotor supplementary, it has been seen that there is ideomotor apraxia is seen, and sometimes there is the movements become very slow and the movements are not so smooth. Then we can call this, when the movement is, then we can call this as a kinetic apraxia. Then we can term it as a kinetic apraxia. Kinetic apraxia, which, so apraxia means inability to do the proper movements, inability to imitate the movements, inability to plan the movements. That is called apraxia, right? So to have a proper motor control, we need few basic components here. Okay, let's try to understand what is the components of motor control. To understand the corticospinal tract, you need to understand about the motor homunculus. Motor homunculus. Okay. So you see, this is the brain, this is the frontal lobe, this is the occipital lobe, and if you look from the front, and let's make a slice. If you cut it this way, okay, and if you remove this part, so how you look at it, you look, this sliced part will look like this. It will look like this. It will look like this. If you slice it in the central sulcus, then this part, the quarter part, will look like this. Okay, I'm talking about one cerebral hemisphere. So it has been seen that here, so this part represents the legs, this part represents the lower limbs, and then there is this part represents the chest and the trunk and the head, and then there is a big part here to the face. Okay, sorry, yes, so not to the face, sorry, this is for the hand. Okay, big part to the hand, and then there is a facial part here, face part here, and the nose and lips, and there's a big tongue here. Okay, and here is this part is for the pharynx. So this is the lower limbs, then the chest, this is the head, this is the hand, and this is face along with tongue. Okay. So this is the motor homunculus. So if you observe it, it is in the cerebral cortex, it is from the lower limbs are at the top while the face is at the down. Okay, so it is upside down at the center, in the brain. So this is the mapping, this is the way our the whole motor system are divided in the central post-central area, or sorry, in the motor area. So if you see here, so means what does it mean? The nerve fibers that controlling the lower limbs, it is coming from here. The nerves that are controlling the head is coming from here. The nerves that are controlling our hand is coming from here. So you can see the head is getting a lot of attention in the brain. It is occupying a huge space here in the brain, in the cerebral cortex. Because why does it happen? Because hand needs lots of movements. These are fine skill movements. Every time we are moving our hand, there 5 fingers are moving, 10 fingers are moving both sides, and it needs lot of attention, lot of control, fine movements, skilled movements, putting a thread in the needle, and every time picking up, grabbing things, grip. It all depends. So it needs lot of attention. So the cerebral cortex has given a big allocation of office. You can say office for the control of our hands, and then face. Face is also very complicated. You are blinking your eyes, you are eating, you are talking, you are smiling, you are making a facial expression. It needs movements of the facial muscles. Okay, so it also needs lot of attention. So you can see this part, the tongue and the face part is here, and here the pharynx part. So this is called motor homunculus, which is representing our the whole our body where which nerve is coming from where is in this way. Okay, this is called motor homunculus. All right. So now we will go to the corticospinal tract. So corticospinal tract, and it is also called as pyramidal tract. Also called as pyramidal tract. So to understand that, you must draw the brain first. Okay, let's draw the brain here. Let's draw the cortex. Okay, so this is the cerebral cortex, right? So if you see the brain here, so this is the frontal part, frontal lobe, occipital lobe, only this is the 2 cauliflowers, cerebellum. So if we lift this brain like this and put it here, so we are drawing like this. So this part is the calcarine sulcus. This part is the calcarine sulcus, right? This part is the calcarine sulcus. So we have this part. So this is the midline which is connected through both the cerebral cortex is connected by the corpus callosum. So let's draw this corpus callosum a little bit. And we have drawn the brain like this. So this is the cerebral cortex along with the calcarine sulcus. Then coming to the midbrain, pons and medulla. So midbrain, pons and medulla. Okay, so let's level it. So midbrain, pons and medulla. So what are the basic landmarks you must know here? You must know here that there is a one lens-like nucleus called lentiform nucleus, both sides, and there is a one here. These are called caudate nucleus. Okay, so caudate nucleus, lentiform nucleus, and don't forget there is a thalamus here. Alright, so this is caudate nucleus, this is lentiform nucleus, So this caudate nucleus and lentiform nucleus, they are part of basal ganglia. And this is the thalamus. These are the thalamus. Okay, so these are the thalamus. So these are the three landmarks. One is lentiform nucleus, L for lentiform nucleus, C for caudate nucleus, and this is for T for thalamus. Okay, these are three landmarks that you need to understand these landmarks so that you can understand the pyramidal tract. So let's wipe out and make some space for here. Alright, so the pyramidal tract, it starts from the cerebral cortex. So cerebral cortex has, when we talk about cerebral cortex, it has 5 layers, okay, 6 layers. So from the 5th layer, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. So from the 5th layers, there are plenty cells here, giant cells, which are called as bed cells. So the corticospinal tract, it's starting from these bed cells. So these neurons giving, this cell body is giving axon here. Alright. So this is the gray matter here. Let me make it this gray matter. So the outer port thickness, this is the gray matter. So from this gray matter, the corticospinal tract is coming up. So the corticospinal tract, let me wipe this part. So corticospinal tract is coming up. It's like a fanning, okay? So it's all zooming here. So it's all collecting here. So whole cortical spinal tract is coming from the 5th layer and it's called coming here. So this is like, if you look closely, this is like fanning of the fibers. That's why these fibers are called corona radiata. Alright. So now the cortical spinal fibers, they are coming from the 5th layer. There's the bed cells and they are coming between the caudate nucleus and the lentiform nucleus. So let me draw it in the bluish part. So here, now this is collected here. So they are traveling here. So they are traveling between the caudate nucleus and lentiform nucleus, and then they take a sharp turn and go between the thalamus and lentiform nucleus. So this blue part is called internal capsule. So internal capsule, you can see it is like this. So this is called anterior limb and this is called posterior limb, and this band is called genu. Genu means, literally means band. So the corticospinal tract is coming from different points of the motor homunculus, and then it's fanning like this, and then it condenses, it's going together as a bunch of tract, and then it goes behind, so goes in behind, it goes between caudate nucleus and lentiform nucleus, and taking a sharp turn and through the posterior limb, that is between the lentiform nucleus and the thalamus. Alright, so this is the corticospinal tract coming from the cerebral cortex and going, now where they are going, they are moving to the midbrain. So they are moving to the midbrain. So let me continue it like this with the blue. So they are continuing with the midbrain. So in the midbrain we have two stalk-like things which are called cerebellar peduncles. So they are cerebellar peduncles. So this corticospinal tract, they pass through the cerebellar peduncles. So cerebellar peduncles are the portion of the midbrain. So if you see here, if you see, this is the medulla, this is the pons, and above the pons, this is the midbrain. So if I separate it, it is there is a stalk here. So this stalk is connecting the brain to the brain stem. So this cerebellum peduncle, it is the anterior portion of the midbrain. So these fibers are coming through the now cerebellar peduncles, and then it going to the pons, going through the pons, and then going to the medulla. Going to the medulla here. Right. So what happens in medulla? So this is the most important part that you should know. Okay. So let me draw a medulla here, a section of medulla here. So let's say this is the medulla, and we divide it to right and left half. So this this is the left side, this is the right side. So this corticospinal tract, which is coming from the left cerebral cortex, this is the left side, right side, is coming descending here. So 80% fibers are crossing to the opposite side here. So 80% are going to the opposite side. So 80% fibers are going to the opposite sides. Well, 20% going to the same side. Okay. So this 80% fibers which are crossing to the opposite side, they are called as lateral corticospinal tract. Lateral corticospinal tract. And these 20% fibers are called anterior corticospinal tract. The anterior corticospinal tract, they are basically responsible for control of the axial muscles, And the lateral corticospinal tract, they are basically needed for controlling the voluntary movements of the hands and the limbs, all the upper limb, lower limb, like that, and the fine skill movements. So they are starting from the cerebral cortex, goes to the posterior limb of the internal capsule, through the cerebral peduncle, then to the medulla. In the level of medulla, 80% at cross, 20% are going to the same side. Now they are descending to the spinal cord. So let me draw the spinal cord section here. So in the spinal cord, the inner matter, this is the gray matter, okay? Don't forget the inside part of the spinal cord is the gray matter. So this is the gray matter. This is the surrounding is the white matter. While in the brain, the outside portion is gray matter, inner portion is white matter. So these tracts are coming down. This bunch of corticospinal tract in the left side, they are coming down like this. So lateral corticospinal tract is coming to the spinal cord. Okay, and then where it goes. So this in this gray matter. This is the anterior side. This is the anterior side. This is the posterior side. So this is called anterior horn. So anterior horn. So this lateral corticospinal tract, they are terminating where? They are terminating in the anterior horn of the spinal cord. They are terminating in the anterior horn of the spinal cord. Okay. So what is lateral? Sorry. So the lateral corticospinal tract, they starts from the corticospinal tract. Yes, in the medulla they cross. So this lateral corticospinal tract. Okay. So they comes to the. So let me draw there because they have crossed. So let me draw here. So this lateral corticospinal tract. These are the 80% fibers from here. These are the 80. I am drawing this. Continuing this. This 80% fibers. Where they will go? They will go and terminate in the anterior horn. So this one nerve which has started the nucleus from here. So let's say this is a nucleus with one nerve which is ending in the spinal cord. This is called as upper motor neuron. So from here to spinal cord, it is called upper motor neuron. Okay, that is called upper motor neuron. So the upper motor neuron is from the cerebral cortex, goes through the internal capsule, through the cerebral peduncle, cross at the medulla, and terminates in the spinal cord at the anterior horn of the spinal cord. Okay. And what about the anterior corticospinal tract? So I am now drawing this 20%. So this 20% is ending up with this anterior horn of the spinal cord, and it will go this way. Okay. It may cross here also. So let's not confuse. Okay. Let me draw that now in a flow chart, in a very simplified diagram. Okay. So let's say this is the cerebral cortex. Okay, this is the cortex, and then medulla, and this is spinal cord. So make it in two halves. This is right side, this is left side. So left side fibers coming from the cerebral cortex. So 80% fibers cross to the opposite side, to the medulla, and goes into the spinal, to the right side, right? So 20% continue as anterior corticospinal tract. From the right side, fibers are coming, and 80% is going to the opposite side and going to the spinal cord, and it is finishing here. And 20% go in the same side. Alright. So means right half of the body receiving 80% from opposite side, left side, and 20% from same side. So if there is a problem here, suppose there is a clot or something, stroke happened, so what will happen here? So this right side will be weak because 80% has gone down. So 80% fibers is coming to the left side, right side, it will become very weak. We call it hemiparesis. But left side will not be weak because it is compensated. Continuing with that, so in the spinal cord, this is the spinal cord section. So we know that the fibers are coming from the cortex, and it's the lateral corticospinal tract is coming from here, and it ending in the anterior horn. This is the anterior horn, anterior side. This is the posterior side, and it is terminating here. And from here, we know this is the another set of nerves. This is for alpha neurons. This alpha neurons, they starting and innervating the muscles. So we know what is there. Here is the neuromuscular junction, right? So this is, you know, this is coming from the cortex, and this is the upper motor neuron. This is number 1, upper motor neuron, and this is number 2. This is called lower motor neuron, which is starting from here. So many of the times it don't terminate directly. It may have some interneuron connections, right? So what's happening here? You should remember that this lower motor neuron is always under inhibitory control. Means this upper motor neuron is inhibiting the lower motor neuron functions. Is checking the limits. So what I'm trying to say here, if for some reason this upper motor neuron goes bad and it's not working, so what will happen? This inhibition is lost. So as a result, these alpha motor neurons will fire a lot. There will be increased action potential. So what will happen if there is increased action potential? The muscles will contract more. So what is happening here? There is increased tone, and there is increased reflexes. Means now if we lift the hand and passively move, there is a certain amount of tone that we, even if we lift, it don't fall on the ground suddenly. It don't fall, okay, because there is a certain amount of tone. So tone is the partial state of contraction. So if the upper motor neuron paralysis occurs, means the inhibition is lost, then what will happen? There is increased firing from these alpha motor neurons. The muscles will be hypertonic. Means when you are stretching the patient's hand passively, there will be increased resistance. So that is the hypertonia condition is there. There will be increased tonic contraction. So these muscles will be like pulling towards itself, and there is increased resistance. That's why we call that as a spastic type of paralysis. We call it a spastic type of paralysis. Spastic type of paralysis. And the reflexes, because it is hyper exaggerated, so reflexes, all the reflexes, stretch reflexes will be increased, and there will be positive Babinski sign. Now what will happen if we disconnect this nerve, if we disconnect the lower motor neuron, if there is a lower motor neuron paralysis. So then if this disconnect this one, so what will happen here? So this muscle is left alone. There is no nerve innervation. So obviously there will be atrophy. Tone, there will be no tone. And if we lift the patient's hand and you leave it, then it will fall suddenly. So that is a flaccid kind of paralysis. So that is a flaccid kind of paralysis. So that is the basic difference between upper motor neuron and lower motor neuron. In lower motor neuron, tone is decreased. Okay, it has become atrophic, flaccid, while in upper motor neuron, the tone is increased, and there will be spastic kind of paralysis, and all the reflexes will be exaggerated. So that is in summary of the corticospinal tract, and that is the upper motor neuron. And so you remember this neurons, this action hole, this is coming from the, so 80% is coming from opposite side here. So right half of the body, so right side of the body, so right side is coming from 80% from the opposite side, and 20% only from the same side. So our right cerebral cortex is controlling our left half 80%. Left half is controlling our right side 80%. So when there is a stroke, obviously 80% fibers are not working on the opposite side. So opposite side will be obviously weak in comparison to the other side, what we call the hemiparesis. Alright. So that's all about corticospinal tract and motor control. Thank you.